Hello, everyone. Time for another Bart and Paul episode. And this week, we're going to talk about something that, at first glance, may not appear as important as it really is. We're actually going to talk about Tarot and Magic. And there is actually a chapter in Aleister Crowley's Book of Thoth called Tarot and Magic. And it discusses, towards the end of this chapter, one particular tarot card. And it's not the card that you're expecting, because you might think, well, perhaps he's talking about the Lust card. Any others, Bart, that could be there?
The Fool.
The Fool.
The Fool. Universe.
Universe. Temperate at the Art card.
Or the Ten of Discs.
But it's none of those. Okay. It's actually the Five of Wands Strife. And he actually devotes more in this chapter. It's on page 41, I think, of the Book of Thoth, 42?
43.
43. He spends more time discussing this card than he does in where you'd expect to find it after the Four of Wands and before the Six of Wands. So what is going on here? It actually goes into some very deep knowledge that he possessed, having coming from the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And it makes the Five of Wands hugely significant when you know about the 72 names of the Shem Hamfresh. Sounds like Sean Connery when I say that, Shem Hamfresh. And the Goetia as well. So this is why he's put it there. But we're not going to go deeply into the whole thing of what he says in the Tarot of Magic, but we'll kind of give you a bit of flavour and then go on to actually the Five of Wands. Have you got any points to make so far, Bart?
No. Well, when I first read it, I just thought he picked a random card as an example. But then, of course, once you get to know Crowley a bit better, you know there is no such thing as random and coincidence.
You would think he would pick a better card. The Five of Wands Strife. It's yucky.
It's not a very interesting card. Otherwise, when you see it,
it's not. It's a yucky card. It's about aggro and hassle. It's got the wands on there, the Chief Adept's wand and the various other wands as well. But there's nothing.
The Lotus wands and the Chief Adept's wands.
Yes, there is nothing in his description later on when he talks about the wands minor arcana that suggests there is anything special going on with this card. But there is. And we'll try and show you this evening of what that's about. So this chapter, the Tarot and Magic, and the first thing he says is, magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with the will. If you know anything about Thelema and Aleister Crowley's writings, you'll have heard that many, many times. He's not saying anything new here. He's restating something he's written about in other places, probably in Book of Magic for Stars and other places as well. And then he says, in other words, it is science, pure and applied. And he says, this thesis has been worked out at great length by Dr. Sir J.G. Fraser. Was he? I don't know if he's a doctor and Sir J.G. Fraser, but J.G. Fraser wrote The Golden Bough, which has had a massive influence on people's understanding of the gods in antiquity and all these things. So he says, but in common parlance, the word magic has been used to mean the kind of science which ordinary people do not understand.
There is a distinction you have to make here. The first one, magic, was with a K. The magic, the one you're on, the last one now, is with a C only.
Yes. So it's having that K at the end makes a difference.
Yes.
There's so that would be the lesser cat, which relates to fortune and change. Okay, so that's so this is why Crowley distinguishes from prestidigitation, stage magic, and this particular magic that he's talking about. So he's equating magic and science here together, and he says the business of science is to explore nature. His first questions are: what is this? How did it come to be? What are its relationships with any other object? The knowledge acquired may then be used in applied science, which asks, how can we best employ such and such a thing or idea for the purpose that to us seems fit? It's a fairly reasonable way. So he kind of goes through the ways in the ancients in the past sort of tried to sort of use this. And there's this whole thing of correspondences, which is a lot of what about Lever 7-7 is about. The idea that, with astrology and all of these things, that similar things have similar qualities that relate to, say, Sagittarius or Venus or some other similar kind of thing. But it's interesting because he actually kind of makes the point that, yeah, they do kind of, but you can stretch things a bit too far sometimes as well, which is very often what happens. Everything doesn't fit in the boxes, basically. So he's talking about all of these things. So then he makes an interesting point, this whole idea of measuring things and practical success that goes on with these things. And he also says there's an obsession with strictly physical qualities, has blocked out all real human values. And then he says the science of the tarot is entirely based upon this older system. The calculations involved are very precise, but they never lose sight of the incommensurable and the imponderable. Now, a lot of what we see in tarot these days is kind of the divinity meanings and stuff, and they're very precise. But there is this whole other side. It's like was it Schrodinger or the quantum mechanics? If you measure one thing, if you know where something is, you can't tell how fast it's traveling, and vice versa. So he's saying that you need to, whatever qualities that we apply to a card, you shouldn't lose sight of the incommensurable and the imponderable, which is the realm of spirits, basically, and all of these things. So when we say that the Five of Wands is Leo, ruled by Saturn, and it also has the value of Gebra because it's 5.
Which is
yes.
Mars.
Mars, yes, and Gebra, yeah.
So
but
Saturn
that is
Mars together.
Yes, it's a very powerful kind of thing. But he's saying that there's something extra that you need to take into account when you're analyzing this card and any other card as well. Actually, it's not just this one, all of the cards. So there's the mundane, which is these values, and there is something bigger. You're going to say something there, Bart?
Yeah, because what you do notice when you look at the 5 of Wands, but you have it with all the 5s, it's one too many. It's one, the 4s are still good cards.
Yeah.
But and the 5, everything goes tits up.
Yeah, yeah. But the whole point is that the 5 shakes up the whole system. There's that Martian energy. But also 5 is the number of spirit. 4 elements plus the 5th one.
So which actually means the 4 elements without spirits are just immovable,
yes,
and nothing happens.
Yes.
But add spirits and things get shaken up.
Yes.
And creation happens.
Yes. So this, by definition, the incommensurable and the imponderable.
Imponderable.
Hard to define. You're not going to sort of narrow it down. So then he kind of goes on to basically about the association with spirits and things, and how do you see the immeasurable, incommensurable, and the imponderable. This is the age-old question with spirits. How do you see them? You see. So he goes on to, by a sort of slightly devious route, he talks about the general ruler of all the four elements. Okay. And it's the same in case as the idea we had with a constable who has a sergeant and an inspector above him. You see, so he's bringing in this idea by stealth as the idea of hierarchies, which, if you know anything about magic, would be a familiar subject to you. Okay, so he's putting all of it in there, and then he says, he's talking about the nymph in the pool that only some can see, and some can see by accident. But there's also this idea that if you apply scientific values and research, that you may be able to see the spirit that way as well, but only if you have the permissions that go with it. And then he takes this on to the idea of the Platonic ideology. He says, which maintained that any material object was an impure and imperfect copy of some ideal perfection. So men who wish to advance in spiritual science and philosophy strive always to formulate for themselves the pure idea. So we're going back to Plato's cave here, aren't we? And all of these kind of things as well. So he's kind of building up a picture of how people understand the spiritual powers behind a physical object, basically. In this case, we're talking about the Five of Wands. We still haven't got to the Five of Wands, but we're getting closer. He's just setting the scene. And it's really funny because when you kind of read these things, as Bart and I were talking earlier, yeah, we've read this, and then someone mentions things, and you go back to think, oh, blimey, that was in there. I hadn't realised, you see, because he does things in quite a sneaky way here.
Yes, he does, eh? He does. There is like no, Ollie, imagine you have to study this for school.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't do the whole book. So what would you do? You would make a synthesis of this book.
Yeah.
But if you would make a synthesis when you just read it the first time, then you would just put in there what you find most important.
Yeah.
Well, if you would make a synthesis of the same book 2 years later, you might have a totally different content.
Yeah. And this kind of shows he is a master of his subjects as well. So now we've gone to this idea of perfection and the pure idea. So then you have to go from the particular to the general, okay, because then it's more accessible to people. And one of the ways is in mathematics, he says that if 6 plus 5 equals 11, which he does, and 12 plus 3 equals 15, which it does. But you need to know algebra and writing down equations for all the kind of ways of doing something. And if you do it from an equation, you have far more power than just by writing basically mathematical equations. 6 plus 5 plus 11, there's better ways to use X and Y and Z and all of these kind of things. So he says the meaningless, so he's turned it on his head now, because we talked about the imponderable and the incommensurate, didn't we? And then he says, so the meaningless and abstract, when understood, has far more meaning than the intelligible and concrete. So he's turned the whole thing upside down.
Yes, but there is a but here. Come on, be serious.
I'm being serious.
Yeah, look, listen, the meaningless and abstract, he means, all right, x squared minus y squared equals open brackets x plus y close brackets open new bracket times open brackets x minus y. Yeah, this seems meaningless and abstract if you don't have the key.
No,
you
right.
don't know what it means.
Yeah.
But if you know what it means, this is not meaningless and abstract.
Yes. You've got to come in from both directions. It's a, but it's interesting the way it starts off with, the imponderable, the incommensurate. How do you know what they are? And then he says, well, actually, you find out that they're more important than the solid things, the facts. See. So then he's taken this whole kind of vast, he's jumped thousands of years basically in a couple of paragraphs here of men trying to understand the spiritual forces of nature. And then he jumps into the subject of this video, the Five of Wands. Because he says, because we talked about the meanings, so he says the meaningless and abstract, when understood, has far more meaning than the intelligible and concrete, has far more meaning than the intelligible and concrete. And then he says, these considerations apply to the cards taken from the tarot. So he's made that big leap that we've been talking about. He says, what is the meaning of the Five of Wands? This card is subject to the Lord of Fire because it is a wand, and to the Sefer Getbra because it is a 5. It is also subject to the sign Leo and to the planet Saturn, because this planet and sign determine the nature of the card. We've already said that. They're the facts. This is what that card is, and you can derive the interpretation and meaning of that card from those things if you know your Kabbalism and your astrology. There it is. But that's not what's actually going on here. So he says, by way of a rather pleasurable digression, he says, this is no more than saying that a dry martini has got some juniper in it and some alcohol and some white wine and herbs and a bit of lemon peel and some ice. It is a harmonious composition of various elements once mixed. It forms a single compound from which it would be very difficult to separate the ingredients. Yet each element is necessary to the composition. Some people can make a great martini and some can't. Shaken, not stirred.
With the same ingredients.
With the same ingredients. Yes. So now we've done the hard facts. We've gone into mixing them all together in the right way. And then he jumps into the personality, because he says the Five of Wands is therefore a personality.
The tarot as living beings.
Tarot as living beings. The nature of this is summed up in the tarot by calling it strife.
All right, point. Here, the next sentence I find is the most fascinating sentence of this whole chapter.
Yes. Because he is actually now talking about how you use this card in a reading. There's a passive way and there's an active way. The passive way is there's going to be a fight, you can't do anything about it. The active way is a different story. So here is what he says. This means that if used passively in divination, one says when it turns up, there is going to be a fight. If used actively, it means that the proper course of conduct is to contend. So be disputatious or actually be quite aggressive on things. So this is the thing, a lot of tarot readers get caught on this means this means that. It's passive, it creates a victim complex within a tarot reader and the clients as well. What is going to happen? You tell me. That's passive. It's victim speak. This happened to me. They did that to me. This is all you hear from a lot of people. And that's the victim talking. Because if you're a spiritual person, you can't be a victim, can you? You can't, can you? Spiritual people cannot be victims.
Oh boy, yeah, they could still be victims in the physical sense, eh?
Could be, yeah, but
if you get bullied in school, you get bullied in school, eh?
Yes, but you're not usually that spiritual at that age.
But yes.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
So he says the Lord of, he also says, he calls it strife in quotation marks. It's true, but actually in the Golden Dawn system, all of the minor arcana are called the Lord of. So he admitted the Lord of apart from all of his minor arcana descriptions. So then he's the Lord of strife. So this is someone ruling over strife. He gives a clue to the spiritual dimensions that we're talking about. And he says, but there is a further point about this card. It is governed from the angelic world by two beings, one during the hours of light, the other during the hours of darkness. So you're coming back into this duality thing. And by saying there's night and day on these things, he's actually talking about the decadent system. So you have 36 and you double it up to have 36 for the night and 36 for the day.
May I excuse me, but I could be wrong, but I thought it was the Goetia that had a system that worked with night and day, and yes, the Shem-Hamfarash works with quinaries.
Yes, I know. Yes, yes.
So here he's on about the Goetia,
yes,
actually.
Yes, yes, yes. But we know that because that's why I said about there being 36. So 2 times 36 would give you the thing. So there's actually 72. So for each of the minor card, the 2s to 10s, there are 2 angels ruling over each card. And so there's 72 Goetic spirits. Technically, there are others as well, but there's one way of doing it, which gets the daytime spirits are 36, and there's the nighttime 36 as well, which is a little bit different from what we're going on to next, which is the 72. It is complicated. We're not expecting to. It's not an exposition on the 72 spirits. This is actually about how Crowley works through these levels to bring about this association. How well he does it is another matter, but this is what he's doing. You're going to say, Bart?
Well, another big or important difference between the Goetia and the Shem-Hamfarash is that the Goetian are demons.
Depends on your view on that one.
Well, in the technical side, yeah, they are demons. They never say the angels of the Goetia. Well,
no, but you can also say demon and daemon as well, which is a different kind of thing as well. So, I mean, if you want to look really hard, you can say, oh, I'm invoking demons and stuff. But yeah, whatever.
Listen, I'm not. This is not being judgmental. This is just reading the label.
No, it is. But people who want to look really hard and stuff, they demonize things and say how tough and strong they are, which is usually a lot of rubbish anyway. Don't be too impressed when people go on about the demons and stuff, because it's not really the case. You see.
It was the other way around as well.
Yeah. Well, my experience,
are also innocent.
Well, my experience when I was writing the Tarot and the Magus was that these, and working with the energies, with the opening of the key spread in particular, these spirits turned up automatically anyway. So it's just by studying the tarot, and there's nothing to be scared of because they're actually teaching spirits and usually very helpful. So, a lot of people say they're demons, but actually working with the tarot, they work out just fine and dandy, and they're very helpful and not at all the tricky way that people think.
Well, but some of them are not exactly Miss World, eh?
No, but would you want them to be? But well, also, these beauty passions, there's a lot of nastiness goes on behind the scenes.
Couldn't that be one of the reasons why they are being so demonized?
Could be. So anyway, so what he's doing here. So he starts off, it's interesting that he does start with the Goetia here. And we know that because we know about the Goetia and the fact that they're divided, the 72 are divided into 36 daytime and 36 nighttime, which is what he's alluding to, without mentioning Goetia. And then he says, therefore, in order to use the properties of this card, one way is to get into communication with the intelligence concerned. and to induce him to execute his function. He makes a leap here that that's implicated if you know this stuff, but it wouldn't be if you didn't. And he basically says there are thus 72 angels set over the 36 small cards. These are derived from the great name of God of 72 letters called the Shem Hamfresh. Not how Sean Connery says it. So the Shem Hamfresh is the divided name of 72. So now he's actually establishing that there are two angels of the 72 that relate to each of the minor arcana from the 2s to 10s. Now here's a really interesting thing that he's doing here. He is making a statement to those people who have studied the Golden Dawn system, because in the Golden Dawn system, you think you start with the 2 of Wands, don't you? That's in March, 0 degrees Aries. You start with 0 degrees Aries, and then you go 2 of Wands, 3 of Wands, 4 of Wands, 5 of Discs, 6 of Discs, 7 Discs. No, you don't. Because of the precession of the equinoxes and the Golden Dawn wanted to balance things up. I'm doing a simplified version here. Is that because of precession, the Golden Dawn system, the whole system of the Golden Dawn, starts at 0 degrees Aries. Well, actually, technically 5 degrees Aries, because that's the star of Regulus. The star Regulus rules the Golden Dawn system. And the minor arcana associated with that first 10 degrees of Leo is the 5 of Wands. So the statement he's making here is that he is perfectly aware that where you start the system from is not 2 of Wands, but the 5 of Wands. And this is where the power
Chaldean
is.
System, no?
Sorry?
There's a Chaldean system.
It is. I mean, the interesting thing is that basically the Golden Dawn system starts from 0 degrees Leo. And it's still the Chaldean system. It doesn't make any difference. The Chaldean system is the order of the planets. You see. So the 5 of Wands. So you start from the top 2 of Wands and go down, or you can go up from the 10 of Discs and all the rest of it. But the system for understanding the 72 angels is that the first 2 angels ruling of the Shem Hamfresh, the first 2 angels are associated with Leo and not the 2 of Wands. This is the importance of what he's done in there. It's very sneaky. It's very subtle, because no one ever reads this bit except for people like us. And we don't always get it either. So this is the power. So if you want to know where this true system of the decadent starts from, it is the 5 of Wands. That's why he's put that card there in this position and explicitly associated it with the Goetia, although he doesn't say the Goetia, and the 72 names.
Now, question.
Yes.
Does he imply, you think, because he mentions both the Shem Hamfresh and the Goetia, does he imply that the Goetian also starts with Leo?
Yeah. Even though in his Goetia book, he starts with the 2 of Wands, and they all do. But actually, why would you start from the 2 of Wands? See, the point is, it's a simple thing in magic. The sign Aries is a cardinal sign. It's the rush of energy, and then Aries start things and they never finish anything. So why would you start a ritual on something that's not going to last? That's the nature of Aries. But if you did it from Leo, which is a fixed sign, cherubic sign, that is where the power. That is, he talks about the Chariot card in particular as the dog days of Sirius is the greatest heat in Egypt, and all of these things. that would be the power, then that would be the lust card, you see, as well, because then you are starting. But he didn't talk about the lust card. He talked about the Five of Wands instead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah? It makes perfect sense to you because you're familiar with these things, but it may not be so much to other people. So this is...
Well, but me personally as well, I do have a hard time accepting this Golden Dawn thing, that both these spiritual calendars start with Leo.
Yeah.
Because you read any other book and it'll say different. It'll say they start in Aries.
Yeah, I know. But Crowley, by choosing the Five of Wands in this position in the book Tarot and Magick, he's actually saying probably one of the most magical cards is the Five of Wands. It's a surprising statement, and it's not one that makes sense, except if you know that's how the Golden Dawn system. So he's actually tying in the his tarot system, the Book of Thoth, with the Golden Dawn system here, whatever else he says, because otherwise he wouldn't make these points. You see. It's a very powerful statement, but you do have to work at it to figure these things out. And that's why he writes more about the Five of Wands here in the introduction than he does where you'd expect it to be, the Five of Wands, because the Five of Wands isn't that long in where it should be next, after the Four of Wands and before the Six of Wands. It's nothing special in there. But this is the key to understanding Tarot and Magick. So when the Five of Wands comes up in your tarot readings, maybe it's telling you there's some extra stuff you need to be doing, and there's some things you can make things happen here. So it doesn't mean that there's going to be fights and arguments. It says to contend, but it is
take no shit.
Yes, yeah, take no prisoners. And by having these spiritual powers on your side, you will win. Because the card next is
Victory.
Which one?
Six of Wands.
Six of Wands, which is victory.
Yeah. Yeah, no, never mind.
It's probably actually talking about the dark night of the soul in all of this as well, actually, you know.
Doesn't he say somewhere that in some situations in life, not fighting is the same thing as losing?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Could well be. But I think it's going through the dark night of the soul and all of these other things that you have to go through. It's a kind of, because Saturn is the card of darkness. So he's relating Saturn and darkness to all of this as well.
Yeah, and the yellow is the yellow of Leo that he's using here.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, Strife and Saturn, it's quite a bright card. The background is quite bright considering the message.
Isn't it? I think also, of course, Saturn, you mentioned the Chaldean order. Saturn is the first planet of the Chaldean order. And then it goes up to the moon. And it says the Saturn and the moon are related. So it also could relate this card back to Yesod as well, by implication too, with all of that. So then you'd have the sun, Tipreth, and because it's, and all that energy is also connected with Yesod as well. So you can bring in other powers and energies and things to play around with stuff. But that's probably for another video, another time. So my friends, there we are. Hopefully looking at Five of Wands in a different way than you ever thought you could. And until next time, don't forget to like, subscribe, join the Thoth Tarot group and the Book of Thoth Tarot group.
The Book of Thoth Tarot group, that's it now, eh?
Yeah, on Facebook. And if you want a reading from me, get in touch. There's my books as well, The Tarot and Magus and Beyond the Celtic Cross. There's loads of things to be going on with. And until the next video, I think we're done.